for your very interesting presentation. There is no doubt that in today's markets, owners cannot afford to have their ships without approvals, and this is a very sensitive subject. I'm sure our panelists will have quite a few comments to make. But I would like to say there is a paradox in this situation, as in the moment in which the freight levels are at their lowest, and in which an owner should save, because obviously their income is very low, he has to spend even more to be in compliance with the various requirements. One typical example, I think, is the crew matrix nowadays, because this is one of the major issues an owner has to address. And very often, to be in compliance with the crew matrix, you have to spend a lot of money, both on formation and sometimes also in sending supernumeraries on board. I'm sure Antonio Ciocchi is very familiar with these issues and can give us his opinion. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, I'm afraid that we are really very late at extra time, actually, to penalty, so just I will come with very few comments. You're right, the industry is suffering of the crew shortage for officers, for which the crew matrix is affected very strong. How we solve at the moment this problem, in practical fact, by extending the crew contract of the people on board, delaying the crew change, or with an aggressive promotion of the junior officer to senior officer as soon as they have the certificate. It's something that we don't like, but we are obliged by the circumstances. Sometimes, as you said, we use retired senior officers to go on board and to cover the position to meet the crew matrix, or transferred seniors from one ship to another to be in line with the requirements. However, we are considering and we are promoting some initiative in order to minimize such a problem with promoting a seminar in the recruiting center with the presence of the owner, which built up and improved the loyalty between the seafarers and the pool of the owners. And also seminar once in the recruiting office and one in the owner office, in order that this relationship built between these two parties assure certain loyalty between the two parties. Also, of course, some benefit scheme is put in place by most of the tanker owners for the seniors to assure that these seniors are really became a part of their pool. And also to minimize the problem of the vetting that this team is facing on board, we promote a training on board the ship with the professionals that do this type of training all year long, 365 days per year, that they board the ship and go through a certain number of checks for all the vetting and other inspection that the ship is facing during the various ports. Actually, to conclude, because we are at penalties, two messages. Initiative to improve the relationship and the loyalty between the seniors on board and the owners team, and training on board and the shore. Thank you.
Thanks, Antonio, for sharing with us some of the technical problems with vetting. Now I suggest to hear also the point of view from ship owners, so I'm pleased to invite Mrs. Francesca Barbaro for her contribution. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going mainly to make reference to what Mr. McInnes and what Mr. Ciocchi said with reference to the vetting and matrix issues that are, as Mr. McInnes said, are crucial, and we have to be very careful about these issues. I mean, being the last session of the day, for sure we have already cleared and we already have a good picture of the current status of the shipping market and also of the tanker market. And we have to say that for sure the tanker market is suffering maybe more than other sectors. As a ship owner in this depressed market, well, we suffer for the decrease of the demand, which is a derived demand, and for the oversupply of the vessels. We have also to consider, as Mr. Camelli said, the very low freight levels, and we have to combine this bad picture with also with the vetting issues and the relevant costs that this create for the owners. And I will just say a few words just to say that it is more and more important that oil majors, charters, have to cooperate with ship owners in order to provide the best service. And I believe to do so, it is really important and essential and to give and ensure an approach which must be uniform and standard, which must be the same for everybody in order to be followed by everybody. I mention this because mainly oil majors are not always very consistent in their approach, and this is creating some uncertainties for the ship owners, which are finding increasingly difficult to comply with the different and very strict requirements of the different oil majors. Even the wording are not really helping a lot. We have, as Mr. McKinnon said, we have approval, we have letter of suitability, we have acceptance, we have a screening on each single voyage, and this does not really help us, or the wording of the clauses, whereby we have a clause that says, is this an obligation, is this a warranty, or maybe it's just an indication, or it's just something where the ship owner has just a thing to act just with the due diligence of a ship owner. Having said that, I mean, the problem is that all this maybe it's not really, it's a bit commercially unrealistic and in the light, above all, of the current market, which is depressed.
Thanks again, Francesca. Now, we have heard from the legal expert his experience. We have heard from the technical expert some of the problems of the crew on board during vetting. We have heard from the ship owner side some of the point of view. Now we turn to the broker vision. He daily listens to the both parties' problems, and of course he daily has to try to find, to connect the charters with the ship owner's side. It's not easy, I think, but I can imagine that he has the opportunity to have a global vision of the market, because he doesn't have to focus on particular problems, but he has to step back and see all the elements together. So I'm pleased to invite Giovanni to give us his global vision of the energy market. Thanks.
Good evening. Well, I would like to reiterate, first of all, what Francesca said earlier, because the lack of consistency amongst oil majors and more in general OCIMF members seems to be by far the biggest problem for all ship owners, which obviously this lack of consistency implies higher costs for running the ships, and obviously OPEX have been over the last 2-3 years a growing concern for all the ship owners, and there is nothing suggests that operating expenses are going to decrease in the next in the short term or the near future. So on the assumption that as things stand at the moment, the market doesn't, as far as tankers are concerned, the market doesn't seem to be improving in the near future, then I think what most of the owners will have to do in order to keep their heads above water in these troubled times is to reduce their costs. I think that the consistency that we mentioned before is obviously one of the keys. It is also very interesting to see what is going to happen with these new ships that are slowly going to be delivered as of 2013, when the shipyards will have implemented significant improvement as far as, first of all, the mechanics, therefore the engines of the ships, and to a lesser extent the hull shape as well. These new features will help owners to save something in between 10 to 15% of their bunker consumptions on daily basis, which, to give you an example, on a MR tanker, this is, you can save up to about $3,500 per day, which is obviously a significant advantage. And it will be quite interesting to see, and to some extent, I must say it is a concern probably for most of the owners who are taking deliveries of their ships these days, is that within 2015 or 2016 we'll end up having very modern ships built in between, say, 2008 and 2012, but with still the, call them, old features, so the old engines basically, that might become therefore very, very old in a very short time frame. So this new process will accelerate the aging process of the ships that are currently being built at the moment, unless the owners manage to find agreements with the shipyards to substitute the engines that had initially been scheduled to be placed on board the vessels. So I think it is now a matter of saving costs, as we have been saying for quite some time, because by the way things look at the moment, there is no great hope for the tanker markets, at least, to improve in the next probably 2 or 3 years. We've been saying that the market will improve. We've been saying that for 3 years, and this has not happened yet. People keep procrastinating when the market will improve, and they keep saying, well, in 2 years' time it is going to get better. But the problem is that the assumption behind this prediction is that the market cannot be bad for so long. But I think that even though I was lucky enough to not to be there, but lots of you have seen a market that has been significantly bad, possibly even worse than today's, for a much longer period of time. I think during the 70s and in the 80s the market has been very, very bad. And there is, I don't want to sound too pessimistic, and I must say that all predictions, or most of the predictions, tend to be reversed after a short period of time. So it might well be that even my prediction, which I tend to believe that most of you share, might be actually can I say, reversed, and maybe the market will improve significantly earlier than what we think at the moment. But the way things look now, I think that it is going to be tough for another 3 to 4 years, to a larger extent on crude tankers as opposed to product carriers.
Thank you, Giovanni. We are now finished. One only thing before just saying good night. I was speaking the other day with the managing director of Intertank, who was visiting Confitarma, and I was talking to him about the fact that in the past years, when the market was low, there was an escape, somehow an escape. There was a layup. Layup for tanker owners today is out of the question, simply because a ship that is laid up will lose all the approvals, and then it's very difficult to put her in the market again. So I asked him if it was possible to intervene with OCIMF and talk to the oil companies to see if a scheme like new building could be proposed, i.e. The oil companies performs an idle inspection of the ship with the obligation to inspect the ship physically at the discharge port, at the next discharge port. So at least the ship will be able to sail again after layup. I don't know if the idea is good or not. He said he found it a good idea, and he said he will talk to OCIMF. So let's hope. let's hope, first of all, that we don't need layup. That's the first thing. Anyway, thank you very much, and it was very nice to be here. Thank you, Francesco, and good night to everybody.